feel like this music would be more appropriate for this conversation that we're about to have. Right?
The Bond theme.
Yeah. All right, that's enough. We'll get yes, bonds are a big topic here in Southwest Michigan lately. And Ken Lundberg, our news director, joining me this morning. Quite a lot of schools that are going for these bond proposals. So the ballot will be full on, what is it, May 2nd?
May 2nd. That's
when
right.
Everybody's going to be voting in different school districts for some pretty major bond issues. I mean, we've got some that are in the $30 to $40 million bond proposals for some of these schools. So, what are some of the things that you guys, and the whole entire news team, have kind of been talking with different area schools, districts throughout before these things come up on the ballot? What are some of the things that are on the wish list, I guess, for this bond proposal?
Yeah, for sure. So, and maybe backing up a step to setting the scene. So
Yeah.
no one is immune to the inflation effects. No one's not feeling it, if I can use a double negative there. And we saw a state report out yesterday that shows Michigan is in need of a few billion, with a B, dollars to adequately fund public schools. And so the way public schools are funded in Michigan is there is a per student allocation in most cases. And what that amounts to is it's less than, I think the latest figure is it's a little less than $9,000 per student.
Mm-hmm.
And the current gap, according to the state of Michigan, is about $2,000 per student. So they're about $2,000 below per student what the state of Michigan believes they need to adequately fund schools. What is that almost $9,000 per student pay for? It pays for teacher salaries. It pays for some of the building needs. It pays for some of the activities and the books and the materials that they need.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that what it is not covering in many cases are taking care of what they have, the capital investments in the boilers, in the roof. There was a situation earlier last week, I think it was, when we had those torrential rains come through.
Yeah.
There was water pouring down in one of the areas onto an electrical box. That's not a good situation to have. And so what the schools are asking for in a lot of these May 2nd elections are those kinds of improvements. How do we make the buildings whole now that we've got the students in place? So to answer your question, Johnny, there are a number of things on the wish list, and it is those capital funds.
Yeah, and that's the thing we were just talking about before we even got on here was if you look at most of the schools in our county, most of them are built in, the 50s and 60s. You can't really say, hey, this is a brand new school within even the last 20 years. I mean, most schools have just made improvements. They have also made additions and things like that, but not very many full on brand new. So that's where a lot of that capital improvements, those boilers that, I saw, I think my old school in Eau Claire was looking for updates on some of the things like that in the HVAC system and the boiler. And they were like, yeah, this was installed in 1958 or something like that. And so a lot of that stuff, and we know just overall infrastructure of things, you got to have a safe place for the kids to be. And just all of those things need to be improved. And hopefully some of these schools will be able to do some of those things. And then there's some other wish list improvements, like, upgrading certain things. And athletic facilities are another piece of that, because we know years ago we switched schedules around here in Michigan and made it a little bit difficult for some of these smaller schools to be able to hold athletic events for both boys and girls basketball, plus wrestling, plus all those other things, to try and coordinate all those things. So it does make things difficult.
Well, and you're right. It's about the overall student experience, right? It's are they warm enough when they're in the school? And when they participate in the outside of school, but school coordinated activities, are they doing it in a safe way or in a good environment? And why is that important? Well, for the things that we talked about earlier this week about teamwork and collaboration and critical thinking, even in a sports environment, you also have data that shows kids who participate in school activities, after school activities, perform better on their grades overall. So
Mhm.
they're more connected, they're more engaged with their learning experience. It's a good thing.
Absolutely. And the teacher's salary part, is that something that's not part of the
That's
bond
not
thing?
no, that's
That's
not
not no, this is bonds are just for capital improvements and things like that. So people that are looking at, the list of things that are going on in your
yeah,
school, these schools aren't asking for a raise for the superintendents and the teachers and things
no,
like that. You
no.
really, you got to look at the list of things. And that's another part is where do we go for information like this stuff? Because I know in communities I've lived in, usually you just see on your ballot, bond millage or something like that for the school. But is there a breakdown somewhere of
Yeah.
what some of these school districts are looking for on their wish list?
I will say some schools are doing it better than others.
Okay.
I would point out Lakeshore as an example of how transparent they are about what they're asking for and what that money's going toward. And so I had an opportunity to talk with Greg Eating, the superintendent at Lakeshore Schools, and we'll have more of that interview on this show. So
Mhm.
stay tuned. But one of the things he did on there is he said, "This is exactly what we're asking for. Here's where it's going to go, and here's why it's important." And you brought up another point earlier, Johnny, about the bones of the schools are great, right? It's
Yeah.
wonderful. It's a great experience to go into an institution of learning where the building has been there for a long time. Maybe your parents went there, maybe your
Mhm.
grandparents went there, but the technology changes and the updates that have been required, it's costly for sure. It's maybe a little bit more costly in some of the older buildings. So when you're running lines for internet so that you can access tools like, in some cases, AI, ChatGPT,
Mhm.
it's gonna cost you a little bit more. So the capital improvements and, of course, keeping the water from draining in is
Yeah.
probably a good thing too.
Those are very important things. But yeah, you make a good point when it comes to infrastructure of all those things. Because if they're wanting to upgrade technology, you're looking at adding a robotics team or this or that,
Right.
or you need fast internet for some of these new technologies and different aspects of CTE and automotive. Even Lakeshore has a great automotive program, and Coloma does as well. Some of these schools are looking at, hey, maybe we should be thinking about some of these electric vehicles and investing in some of that stuff. But if you don't have the technology, you can't really do some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But so go to the websites, what school district you're in, see what information they have. There are, in some cases, schools are offering public forums between now and the May 2nd election if you have any questions.
Yeah, and some of them do have some produced videos and
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
saying these are some of the things we want to do. So go and check those out and stay informed with what's going on in your community and what's on the ballot. Because May 2nd will be here in less than a month. So here in a couple
It's
weeks.
coming
So
up. Yeah.
stay informed with all that stuff. And you can also check out more at WSJM.com.